It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeart Radio Station. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris, and I'm so glad to be with you this evening. Before we start tonight's show, I have to say that my theme song was performed by Monisa Camper Barnes. Since my last show, she has had a baby. So congratulations, Bill and Monisa, on the birth of your son. He is adorable. I see him every day, like on Facebook now. I think he was early because I remember we were supposed to be at a baby shower next month. But you know what? He was early to us. He was right on time for God. So that's all that counts. So having said that, tonight we are going to discuss the transformations that God brings us through. And I have two very, very special guests with me, Ms. Donna Hammond and Miss Denise Powell. How are you all this evening?
Doing great.
Very good. Thanks, Rhea.
They have their testimonies in a book. This is my story, but it is not my life. Stories from Women Who Climbed Back by Laditra White. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Yes. And the title should have prepared me, but it didn't. You know, I'm a reader. Thing. Right. It should have prepared me, but it didn't. But it was an uplifting moment of people telling their individual triumphs after their trials, you know, the test before the testimony. So I'm not going to talk my way through your story. That's what you're here for. So I'm going to let you tell your own stories. And we're going to talk about how much the Lord has done at the end of it, because that's what both of you all talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, Donna, before you even start telling your story, I want you to tell how you met me, like what we discussed in the back, because that ties into what we have here.
Yes. So, as I make my way towards the 60 mark, as I shared with you, I don't remember exactly how we met, but I remember the reason why we met. I have been following you for quite some time, and a few years ago, Rhea, you you started something that really catapulted me into talking about my experiences and taking my power back. So that was an opportunity. We all gathered at an event that you had in the Beverly area. And that event was about survivors and about sexual abuse and the like. And I was surprised because I actually met a young man there who we have since have continued to follow one another, Ivan Kennedy, who was very open about what occurred with him. And I praise God for him and for his testimony and story as well. So what happened was we were in a room with a lot of people being open and honest about what we experienced as children. My story is not an extraordinary story because I found that so many of us as adults have gone through. My story was one in this book of betrayal. My story was one of survival. My story was one of how did I get here? And Lord, I need to get out. My story was one where I did not succumb to what could have happened to me, all but because my God kept me. My story begins sharing what I am not, and that is, I am not a victim.
Thank you, Jesus.
My story begins sharing what I am, and that is that I am wonderfully, fearfully, wonderfully made by God, and that I am a conqueror more than a conqueror. And then I shared in the beginning of the story about us telling our own story.
Wait, because I have to read that quote. Hold on. Because that right there stopped me. The quote is, when you write the story of your life, don't let anyone else hold the pen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I have to say that right there, I was like, I'm already done, because that was so important to me, because we have allowed people to tell us who we are.
Absolutely.
Not just as a race, not just as a gender, but as individuals. Instead of saying, well, hold on, I'm gonna tell you who I am.
Exactly.
I don't need you to co-sign it. So
yes, and so that in addition to that, from a spiritual standpoint, my pastor emeritus, Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright, used to preach a lot about us making sure that we tell our story as African Americans and not allowing society to tell our story, because they don't know our story, therefore it will not be the truth. So that really helped me a lot as I studied under Pastor Wright, and as a member of Trinity, I remembered that even in my writing. So who am I? Who is Donna? Well, Donna is a survivor. Uh, it's very difficult, even at this time, to have a conversation about the fact that I was, as a child, sexually abused by my stepfather, someone that I would typically trust in the household. That started very early in my life. My mom married this man. He was her third husband, and she brought him home with us. I'm not going to give all the issues with the story, because you got to buy the book. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, because there's a lot more than that to tell as well. But I ended up being molested many times from the time I was 6 until around the time I was 13 years old, and even approached after then in my teenage life, except for I was one who had a mouth big enough to say, no, you're not going to do this to me. And no, I'm not doing it. So that little girl that I was, um, many nights I would be afraid, because I didn't know what I was going to come home to in the evening. My mom worked. He got off from work earlier than my mom, and my brothers and I would be at home, and he would get home. And so she was not really there when all of this would happen to me. It was always convenient for her to not be at home. And during those times is when I was, molested.
and this was in the time where latchkey children that was not an anomaly, because
Right.
our communities were viewed overall as safe enough for us to walk home from school.
Exactly.
And a
Together.
neighbor or somebody would say, okay, everybody here, and then everybody can go play or
Right.
whatever. So
my
yes.
brothers and I would come home from school together, and my mom would work downtown, and she got off a little late, and she'd take the bus home, and that was the opportunity. So that happened to me, and I am blessed, because God placed in my mind to not have that make something else out of me. He also placed in me in a position that a family took me unto them, and they would take me to church. So my going to church with that family was my out. And I have been a member of that church now for almost 44 years. And I thank God every day, because if it was not for that family, the Allen family, if it was not for my church, Trinity Church, and for the youth that I grew up with at that church, I don't know where I would be right now. I don't know if I would still be right now. So it took a lot for me to know people, to get to know people. I still have issues with getting to know people, believe it or not. But I have been surrounded by some wonderful people who have heard my story and who have truly been very surprised by it. People that grew up with me, the first thing they say, I had no idea that you went through what you went through. And that's, as we shared in the earlier today before we came on, is the fact that what went on in our house stayed in our house. So we didn't have these conversations outside our house. Besides that, I thought it was normal as a child, as 6 and 7 years old. I didn't know any different. My mother didn't have that conversation with me. If anybody touches you, you say something. And even if she did, nothing was done when it was said. So nothing was done that should have been done.
You said that your story is more so a story of betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to guide us in this vein because a lot of survivors have that same story of betrayal, because at a point your mother was notified.
Yes.
And she did not go to prison for murder of him.
Right.
Okay. So
nor did he go to prison for
what
abusing me. Exactly.
Okay.
Never was punished for it. He denied it openly. Every time it was brought up, he denied it. And that took my relationship to my mother. We did not have a great relationship. We had a decent one, but it wasn't one where I trusted my mom and I could go to my mom to tell her anything and I wouldn't have to worry about it getting out, because that did not happen. So, I have to look at the fact that she also had her issues, and she was also a survivor. And, as I grew up, I started hearing stories about what she had to go through. But I can only talk about what I went through. I can only share what I went through and what did not happen as a result of that.
Something else that we had mentioned in the back, which is the multi-generational dysfunction in a lot of cases. And a lot of times, if we are honest, which is something in most families that I've encountered, it's, if you're not in a certain generation, there's certain things you just don't know. It just didn't tell you. Because I know at 40, how old am I? 47? I think I'm 47. Yeah, that sounds right. My mother and my aunt still treat me as if I am 12. So there are conversations that I am still not privy to because I'm not a part of that generation.
Exactly.
But in having done that, I know they feel like it was protection. And on some levels it was. At a certain age, I shouldn't have known. But on other levels, you can't stop what you're not aware of. Mm-hmm. So on other levels, I think at a certain age, you should say, hey, look, this is why this happened. This is why we operate like this, whatever. So everybody is clear about the family history or the dynamic, or even if it was stranger danger, which honestly rarely happens compared to interfamily and friend issues, to say, yeah, I don't like that because someone molested me, someone raped me. We very rarely have those conversations. And even when the family sees it, we turn a blind eye to it. We pretend like we don't see it. Yes. We don't want to deal with it. And it allows it to not just grow and fester. It allows the next generation to become, in a lot of cases, victims of it as well, because that's what they know, because that's what they saw, and no one said that this was wrong.
Yes. So, I don't want the reason for this show to turn into a downer, if you will. So I can say my whole being here is the fact that I survived. And I survived well, to the point where I did not do drugs. I did not go on the street and become a prostitute. And the reason I say this is, Rhea, is because these are statistical numbers. When women and men have experienced childhood sexual abuse, these are the things that happen to them.
Alcoholism, substance abuse, and prostitution.
Yes. So I went into a different mode, and that was because I learned how to love myself, and also I love Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Who went on the cross and died for me. So because of that, because of what I experienced in church, and because of my faith in God, that was the purpose of writing my story. This is my story, but it is not my life. It did not become my life. It did not become that was not who people associate me with. So I want people to associate with me with, oh, she loves God. She is in church. She's involved. She's teaching others. I teach children, teenagers. So I want to let them know, young women know. I want to empower and encourage them because of what I experienced and what I went, not what I am going through, but what I went through, and how it is very easy to not trust because of the fact that you are so much, people want to beat you down so much in many ways. And it was because of faith, just what they call the size of a mustard seed. And I went through some things even after then. There were a lot of the issues that I had to deal with that I'm still dealing with now. But I can honestly say that I feel good about the person that I am and feel even better about the person I did not become.
And with that, we're going to take a break on the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com. And when we return, we're going to have our money moment with H. Cortez. And then we're going to talk with Miss Denise because she has a different story. And then we're going to talk about how your test is your testimony. We'll be right back.
Straight No Chaser family. It's your boy, H. Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's money moment. Tonight I want to talk to you about a formula that I call the abundant life formula. Guys, this is the same formula that I use to drag my family out of bankruptcy. I learned this formula. We were 6 months behind in our mortgage payment, deep in foreclosure, about to lose our home, stressed out, just not a good situation to be in. And I know a lot of families can relate. We are just not in the place that we should be financially because we don't have a money plan. But here are the 4 things that I did to help my family recover. And hopefully you guys can take note and find some sort of solace or peace in applying this formula to your life. The first thing I had to do was change. I had to change my mind. I started putting in different information because I wanted a different outcome, right? So if you change the input, you by default change the outcome. So I started reading different books. I started attending seminars. I started listening to audios that will put me on the path that I saw for myself in my future. The second thing I had to do was I had to change again, but this time I had to change my association, right? Once I changed my mind, that helped me to become a very positive person, and I started to feel really good about myself and see a future for myself. But what that also did, it eliminated the negativity in the people who were around me. So I had to change my association. The third thing I had to do is I had to find a system. We all know that success is not attained in a day, but it is attained in the things that we do daily. So I had to find a system that allowed me to implement daily success habits, and that helped tremendously. Then the fourth thing that I did, I found a mentor within that system to help coach me, to help keep me on the right path, to help me avoid some pitfalls, and that transformed my family's life. When I'm talking about abundance, yes, an abundance or an overflow of money and wealth and prosperity is good, but how about an abundance of peace? How about an overflow of joy? How about an abundance of happiness, guys? All of that can be attained if you use this abundant life formula. So I'm your boy, H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. You're checking out this great No Chaser show with my girl, Rhea Ray, as your host. If you want more information or you want to plug in with me, then just check out my website, www.hcortezthornton.com. Until I talk to you guys next time, get your money up. Peace.
And that was our money moment with H. Cortez. Get your money up. And we are back now with the second part of our show. Good evening. Good evening. Now, you have a different story because you are in another part of the book.
Yes, that's correct.
Let me say that each part of the book has a section. And because I was going through, because it says your first name and sometimes an initial, and then it says the city. And then you were in a whole different section. So it's betrayal, illness, mothers, family, and relationships, starting over, and death. So you were in a different section than Donna. What is your test?
Oh, it's really interesting because I will say the book has actually taken me on a journey. So I'm continuing to learn from my experience in telling my story. Now, I grew up in a great house. I grew up in a two-parent family. We always had food to eat. We had clothes to wear. Very loving environment. But somewhere along the line, as I grew up and got on my own, for some reason, and I really don't know why, I found I didn't think a whole lot of myself. And I allowed myself, and that used to make me mad when folks would say, you're allowing this to happen to yourself. No, I'm a victim. No. But I would allow people to, mostly men, to just misuse me and mistreat me and inflict emotional pain. Or I shouldn't say inflict, because again, I have to own this. It was self-inflicted. I allowed this to happen to me. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I always entered into these relationships that would leave me emotionally hurt and emotionally scarred. And it got to the point where I felt like it was a scar that just wouldn't heal. Relationship after relationship after relationship I got into, there was always some issue. And I tried so hard to be the perfect girl. I tried so hard to want to make somebody want me in life. And I don't know why I allowed that to happen to myself, but I do know that at a certain point in my life, I had a self-esteem and a self-confidence issue. I finally allowed God into my life, and He spoke to me. And I'm not going to get into how I reconnected with God, because I was away from church for 26 years. And God, from the time I was 13 until the time I was 39. And when I reconnected with God, He let me know that, hey, you don't have to allow anyone to do this to you. You can walk away. You get to say whether or not you're going to allow someone to call you out of your name or reject you or stay out all night or whatever it was. And yeah, there's some, I sort of outlined some of the stories that men would tell me, and then I was gullible enough to believe them. So it was very freeing when I finally realized that I was fine just the way God made me. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And it took a long time to finally get to that aha moment where I said, wait a second, I control this. I run the relationship here. I run whether or not I want to be with you. And I may not want to be with you. So it had to be where I made the decision. I had to realize I'm the prize. I don't have to run after a man. And the reason for the story is I'm hoping, I see a lot of women out here, I see a lot of young women who are chasing after men who really mean them no good whatsoever. I see women who put up with men who physically abuse them. I see women who put up with men that sit up and won't, not don't work, won't get an education, won't take care of their children. And you don't have to put up with that. That's not normal. I shouldn't say it's not normal, but it's just not, you don't have to put up with that. You don't have to deal with that. And then they're, half come home, taking your money or whatever else. You don't have to do that. So I'm hoping that my story at least lets some woman know that she is in charge. She's in control of who it is that she allows into her life and into her space. But you do have to get to a point where you understand that you are a child of God. You deserve more. You deserve to be happy, and you don't have to. You don't have, and it might mean that you don't have a man, and you have to step out on faith and say, you know what? Am I better off just because I have somebody to hold me at night, or am I better off not putting up with this foolishness and this nonsense? So you really have to think about that. And like I said, this book has taken me on a journey because I am still, what I also found out about myself when I wrote this story and afterwards is, the saying, hurt people hurt people. Not only did I allow people to inflict pain on me, I learned that I could also be the purveyor of pain. That was an extremely difficult revelation for me to understand because I always saw myself as the victim. Oh, they did this to me. Oh, they did that to me. Oh, you hurt my feelings. Whatever it was, I was the victim. I was the good guy. I was the good person. I'm such a good person. Why would they do this to me? And what I found was I actually caused other people pain as well. And it's one thing to admit it and own it. It's another thing to make amends for it. The hardest part was forgiving myself. I'm still forgiving myself. Now, the pain I inflicted on others was because I was rejected. I would reject others. Close friends, just walk out for no reason at all, for some petty thing that I wasn't even woman enough to have a conversation about. I would just reject people. And it did end up creating harm. It created hurt. So I realized I could be the purveyor of pain as well. Again, very, very difficult thing to admit and to come to terms with. But once you start telling your truth, telling your truth actually makes you a much better person. Because then you start listening to that still small voice. Because, a lot of times we push that out of our heads because we all have a conscience. Something in our conscience says, you didn't do something right. Nope, I had every reason. This is why I did it. You stand steadfast in why you did what you did as a person who's been hurt. But then when you start realizing and telling your truth that, hey, you know what? I allowed this to happen to me, and then I inflicted it upon others, and you come to a point where you can forgive yourself, it really does make you a much better person and also makes you a lot happier to live with yourself.
There's something that, as women in general, not everyone fits any particular mold, but in general, we carry a bag, at least one bag, of something that has hurt us, harmed us, changed how we viewed ourselves at some point in our lives. And some of that is intentional. Someone intentionally did it. Some of it is subtle and unintentional, but we accepted the responsibility regardless.
Correct.
And a lot of times said, well, they said I was of this and of that. I must be that.
Yes.
How do we as women say, it's okay to tell whomever, no, that's not me, and no, I won't accept that title, because I think a lot of women have difficulty, even with all the brashness, especially that, Black women are portrayed to be aggressive and brash. But I think deep down, a lot of Black women are not even angry, they're hurt.
Mm-hmm.
They've been hurt, they are hurting, and they are not healing. And so that's a defense mechanism from being put in that position of pain again. It's almost like, let me get my role off before you even start talking.
Right, exactly.
How do we fix the inside?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not up to someone outside to fix us. We have to fix ourselves.
Rhea, you just said something about how we allow other people to define us. And we do. We let people tell us, we're bad people, you're ugly, you're this, you're that. And I know every woman out here has heard some man say to them, you're the type of woman who.
And fill in the blank.
And fill in the blank. And it's always something negative. You're the type that nags. You're the type that wants this. You're the gold digger. What you have to, one of the other things that I realized when I turned back to God and realized that I was fearfully and wonderfully made, still am actually, was that I know me better than I know me. I know who I am. How do I allow someone else who has never walked in my shoes, who is not in my skin, who has not seen what I see, what I've seen, who doesn't know what I know, how do I allow them to tell me who I am? It finally occurred to me, why am I allowing someone else to define who I am? And I think sometimes we do it because we may not know who we are ourselves, but I'll tell you one thing, we know who we're not. We do know, I may not know who I am, but I know who I'm not. So you can't sit up here and tell me you're the type of woman who. You're not going to allow me, I'm not going to allow you to make me a stereotype. And that's what I would allow people to do.
Donna.
One of the things that I did about 3 years ago, God placed it on my heart to start. We just gathered, a group of us, we gathered together women. And I started a group called Sisters Affirming Sisters. A lot of times with us, Black women, we have so much of a tendency to put one another down. And that's because we're hurting. It goes back to what Denise has said. So this group of women started off with, how many? There were about 10 or 15 of us, and it grew to exponentially to like 30 women. Now, the idea, Rhea, was for us to come and gather as women. It was to embrace, to empower, to encourage, nothing about tearing one another down. And so we gathered as a group. Now, there were different age groups, they were different. We didn't just do our group. We had young ladies who were the daughters of some of the members. Our oldest member she'll be 70 years old this year.
And how old is the youngest?
The youngest, I would say in her 20s maybe. Okay. So there's an intergenerational concept. And we have not been able to meet as much as we have, but anytime we've gotten together, it has been remarkably great. We share our ups and downs. We pray for one another. We do have a private Facebook page. Laditra, who the author of the book, I invited her to be on the page because one of the things that she does, she blogs and she has some of the most uplifting messages for people in general. So there may be one person that may have to read something that she has written that's about encouragement. That's all she does. She's an encouraging person. So what we found when we got together was we didn't get together to have a club meeting. It was just to sit around as women and talk. If you felt comfortable being around a woman talking about issues that you're dealing with, asking for prayer, that was cool, but we did not force the issues. There was one time that I asked the ladies to bring journals. Wrap the journal, don't put a name on it. And so we wrapped the journals and we handed them out. You reached in the bag and you grabbed a journal. The other thing I asked the ladies to do was to write a message to the woman that was going to receive the journal in the journal. Every journal that was pulled, it was the most incredible thing happened because the messages that were in the journals that we pulled were specific to us, even though we didn't know who was going to get it. They all spoke volumes to the person that received it.
And it was the message you needed to hear at the time.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because you didn't necessarily get a journal from someone you knew well. fact, the person I got the journal from, I wasn't even sure what her name was. But the message was so on point. It was absolutely amazing how that happened. The other thing is what goes on in our gatherings stays in the gathering.
Right. AA without the alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, now,
right.
Maybe.
Perhaps, but yeah.
You're right, because one of the most shocking things, I guess, for me, because my mother is going to be 76 in June,
Mm-hmm.
and she has 60-year friends, and actually my cousin, our cousin Junior, has been her like from the womb friend.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things she was really disturbed about when she looked at my life was, she was like, you have Pam, who is a 20-year friend, but as far as people I talk to on a regular basis and close, she said, you don't have any of the friends that you had in grammar school and in high school that you're close to. Now I can call them if something's going on and I know they'll respond, but she was really kind of taken aback by that. And I told her, you know what, Mom, the world is a little different now.
Absolutely. Most of us don't have those long time friendships.
And she was stunned, again, because we talk about what's your personal normal.
Yes.
That's her personal normal. So she didn't know that Black women were having such difficulty maintaining long-term relationships, as far as not just intimate relationships, but friendships. And that there was this, instead of camaraderie, there was a competition and combativeness.
Yes.
On some levels. And there has to be a way, and you all seem to have found a method to stop that, because that is not just destructive to you. If I do it, it's also destructive to myself. And I don't think people realize that. Yes.
Actually, I was going to say, one of the things that has been amazing about this book, besides Donna and I don't think we don't know each other. I don't know those women in the book.
Look, you are the only two in here from Chicago.
Right.
Everybody like, no.
Right. Exactly. However, as this book has been marketed, there's been a lot of social media buzz around it. There was, and I can think of, I think we had the second book signing, and then the next book signing was in Atlanta, which was last weekend, not Easter weekend, but weekend before. And there was a woman who went through great lengths to put together her book signing. I mean, she had an event planner. It was just beautiful. And a lot of us who are in the book reached out to her and congratulated her. We pat her on the back, we uplifted and we encouraged her. So the nice thing about what this book has done for us, like I said, the journey continues. This book has had an impact after we told our stories.
Most definitely.
The impact is continuing. And you're starting to see this interconnectivity among sisters coming together.
Exactly. That
we are uplifting and encouraging each other. And it's one of the most beautiful things. The other thing about friendship is I knew Laditra about 30 years ago. And she's about 8 years younger than I am. So she was like my little sister. So I met her, and then we lost track after, in 1990 when I moved here to Chicago. I did introduce her to Donna through Facebook. She and Donna didn't know each other, but again, through this book and through telling the story, they now have become good friends. And I've also reconnected with the teacher, so we have picked up our friendship. What's beautiful about it, and like you said, a lot of women are in competition for each other. Laditra and I still have a very close relationship. What I am so thrilled about is that she and Donna now have their own relationship. And I'm so happy. And we're besties. Yeah. We're best friends. And then the three of us can be friends together. Mm-hmm. I am so thrilled, and I'm getting sort of chills in a sense, because I am so thrilled that my friends get along with each other and truly love each other. That it just does something to my heart. And it just makes me happy to a level that I can't even describe. And that's what I'd love for other sisters to experience. Is the joy of being around other women and not worrying about being in competition. Cheer them on, be encouraging to other sisters, just like we did to the sister we don't even know that wrote the story.
And even with her, with the young lady that wrote the story and who had the book signing, this past weekend I was on her page. She had a picture of her and a friend of mine. They're in Atlanta. And she says, "Oh my goodness, I just ran into one of my favorite people, Michelle." And I'm like, wait a minute. Michelle and I have been friends for quite a while, you know. And I said, well, it sure is a small world.
Yes, it is.
It is such a small world, you know. And so how wonderful was that they actually belong in the same organization. They had a fundraiser over the weekend.
Okay.
And that was their connection. And I said, how you know Michelle? And she says, well, how do you know Michelle? And so we just never met this young lady before. I know Michelle, but never met Karen. But we became friends through social media. Social media is a beast. Mm-hmm. It's a beast.
It is.
It's
and
a
you
beast.
can use it for good or
bad. Right.
Yes.
I'm telling you, it's something else. I don't turn my back on social media. I just will not. But Denise and I, we have been friends for a long time, maybe about 20 years.
About 20 years.
And when I tell you, she told me something yesterday. I mentioned something on Facebook. She literally told me, I will fight someone over you, That's the kind of girlfriend I want, And so we talk, we don't, and here's the other thing about our friendship, our best friendship, my bestie. We don't talk every day. We may not talk for a whole week. We may not talk for 2 weeks.
But when you talk.
But when we get together, it's on and popping, So, and I don't go after her. She has a life. I have a life. We both have families at home, and, things happen. And so, but I tell you one thing, I'll tell you what kind of girlfriend and what kind of sister she was to me. When my first marriage ended and I walked out, she told me, pack a bag and come here.
And that was all it is.
And that was all it was. I was with her for 2 years at her house. She never bothered me. I never bothered her. We got together on the weekends and did our girlfriend thing, but she had her life and I had mine. And she let me do what I needed to do for me. That's a girlfriend. That is a true friend. No conditions. There was no disrespect. There was no, you shouldn't have done that way. There was nothing but support. Now, I'm not saying that my girlfriend needs to agree with everything that I do, because Lord knows she has not, and vice versa.
That's true. That's what good friends do.
But that's what a good friend does. And so when I started sharing my story with her, and we're still sharing this story, because some days I need to talk about it. Mm-hmm. There are days when I really need to talk about it. I tell you one thing that happened with the first book signing we did 2 weeks ago. I thought I was okay until I saw those books across the table and the women started coming in, and I wasn't ready. I was not. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? It's going to be okay.
And she knew.
She knew where I was.
What to say to bring it back.
Never thought that would happen. That, because I wasn't expecting that, but something came over me and said, Donna, this is real. You're out. God has placed you out here now. He has catapulted you out. Your story is coming up and out. You got to keep it out.
And truth be told, something you don't know, that's why I talked so much at those 2 book signings. Because I knew that my friend needed some time and some space.
Yes.
And what I was trying to do was to deflect so that, because her story.
Give her the time to be able to amp up and tell her part.
Because her story is so powerful and it's so personal that, I needed to kind of, I didn't want people, kind of hounding her or sort of, I didn't want her to be impacted in a negative way by when she was not quite ready to talk about, maybe to have that level of conversation someone may have wanted to have. So that's why I talk so much at those 2 book signings.
So now
now I know.
Again, the truth thing, straight no chaser, right?
I want you all both to, for the people that are listening and watching, tell them how right now and from here forward, how faith is playing the important role, because that is the role in your walk. Because this is, we're on steps of a journey, but the journey, this isn't the beginning. I mean, this is the beginning. This isn't the end. So, because I know both of you are faith-filled. So tell them where your faith has brought you to and where you see how far it's going to take you down the road.
So
that's a deep question.
That's a good question, Rhea. Can I call you about 2 weeks? No, I'm just kidding. Let me tell you about faith. Faith is God is so awesome. Faith will send you back to school. Faith will have you believing, I think I can, I know I can, I can. I went back to school a few years ago, told Denise, I said, I think I'm going to go back to school and get my degree. And I stepped out on faith. I worked full time, went to school full time, straight A, 4.0 GPA.
Yes.
And then life happened. We had some very tragic situations occur in our family to the point where I stopped going. Then faith allows another person to meet me at an event last year and says, you need to be in seminary. She didn't know me, but she saw something. You have been through some stuff and we need you. Now, I said, okay, but I got to have faith to pay off my bills. As I get ready to be 60 years old, that's a lot for me because my mother died before she turned 61.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, Lord, I want to live, but I got to have faith and trust in you that happened to my mom is not going to be my story. Because I believe by faith, there's some people that I need to have a conversation with. There's some stories that are still coming up out of me that need to be written. This book has caused me to know that it's time for me to write. Someone asked me, when are you going to write that book? And I'm thinking, what book are you talking about? But that has been on my mind for quite some time. We've been talking about that for years. So having faith, just trusting in God day by day. You don't have to worry about, one of the things I told Denise on our way here, you overthink stuff. You got to stop overthinking. You take one little baby steps. We talk about baby steps. Eat some baby food. Go grab you a jar of Gerber and have you a snack. Slow down and eat that. Marinate on that. Or get you a bottle. Just calm down. Because when we start overthinking stuff, we stop believing and we stop having faith. God had already told you what he's going to do. Now you got to let him work.
You got to believe it.
You got to believe it.
Okay.
So,
Ms. Denise?
Because I always suffered with self-esteem and self-confidence issues, where faith has taken me, now that I understand that, again, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. There's nothing wrong with me as I am. I'm a grandmother of 3 children. And I'm actually I'm 3 weeks younger than Donna, so I'm hitting that 60 mark as well. So to still kind of suffer, because I still have to be very careful and balance the self-esteem and self-confidence issues. I'm still working on that. But as a grandmother of 3, I'm working really hard to instill in them how wonderful they are, how good they are, how smart they are. And I have to say, and I don't have any children. My husband has a son from a previous marriage, and he has 3 children. So I met him when he was 15. So I never had I never raised children before. So to now have a relationship, a really great relationship with 3 kids, 10, 7, and 5. I'm trying to instill in them that sense of self-confidence. And I noticed the middle one, the girl, it's a boy and 2 girls. I notice when she goes off in the corner by herself, how quiet she becomes, how she tries to make herself small, because I used to do that. I tried to make myself very small so I wouldn't be a bother to anybody. How she tries hard to not make any mistakes, which was, again, another issue that I had, trying too hard to be the perfect person. I try to spend some time with her. I really try to be very, because it's real easy to let the other 2, because they both battle for time. They're both very outgoing, very talkative. The middle child is very introverted, and I may not believe it with me talking now, but I grew up as an introvert. I'm still very introverted, and I see that in her. So I really ask God to guide me in helping these children to become and to not suffer with some of the same issues that I suffered with. How do I help them to become the best people they can become? So I've really been blessed to have this opportunity to have a relationship with these 3 kids. I just love them with all my heart, and I'll tell you, they love themselves from grandma. I can tell you that right now. We do. We have a wonderful relationship. So that's where my faith is taking me. So it may be something that I'm struggling with, but I'm trying to take what God has taught me about myself and make sure that they know that this is what God says about them. Not what the person down the street, not what your brother just said that was mean to you. This is what God says about you.
And what a legacy that would be for them, because I can share with her grandson. So cute. Yeah. We can be out hanging out and he'll call her grandma, grandma, grandma. That's all, you know. And she's right there. These kids adore her a lot. And I see her with them. First of all, I take second, you know, she puts me to the side. Okay, I got to go to grandkids here. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll talk to you later, you know. But, and I really admire Denise because of the fact that even though she didn't raise her own child, she knows how to raise children. Now, a lot of women don't know how to do that, you know.
And they may have a bunch.
Yes.
Biologically.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, she knows how to raise and love children and teach.
And protect.
You know,
because that's what it's about. It's about teaching and protecting, because they don't know. They don't know.
No, but somebody will if you don't.
That's and right. They'll never forget that. They'll never forget that. These kids will grow up knowing that if no one else was in their corner, Denise was in their corner.
And that's one of the lessons I want to leave off with today. We want to stop this multi-generational dysfunction.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we want to gently, kindly correct as well as uplift. Mm-hmm. Because as women, we owe each other and ourselves at least that. Because if you don't teach the right thing, someone is going to teach the wrong thing.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
And we owe that to ourselves and those around us. Mm-hmm. Be they our children, our spouses, our families, to be the best women we can be. And that's enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we get twisted. We don't ever think that it's enough. It is enough.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
If you are walking in the light of Jesus Christ, it is enough.
Yes, absolutely.
Before we have to leave, again, this is my story, but it is not my life, by Laditra White, which it tells the stories of many women's overcoming. How do they get the book?
So this book locally is available at the Akiba bookstore at Trinity United Church of Christ, 400 West 95th Street, or you can go online to liveyourAwesomeLife.com.
LiveyourAwesomeLife.com.
There is a Kindle edition as well of this book.
Okay.
So, you know, if people, you know, don't like the hard copy, there is a Kindle edition through Amazon.com. And also purchasing that book through liveyourAwesomeLife.com helps with Laditra's ministry. She has an awesome ministry in Atlanta, and it helps with her ministry, which she has done some tremendous work. And so we just thank her. We want to say thank you to Laditra White for giving us the opportunity.
Hey, Laditra. Now, I know you were interviewing elsewhere tonight, so you couldn't be on the show, but I appreciate the fact that you took this effort and made it a reality.
Absolutely.
Well, Denise and Donna, thank you so much for being
guests on the
Thank you
so much. Thank you.
Oh, this is serious business here. This is about saving lives.
Absolutely.
Yes,
because there are a whole lot of people that are walking dead.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And with that, we have ended the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com, an iHeart radio station. And as always, dedicate yourselves to the truth, no matter the cost. Everyone be safe, be blessed, have a peaceful evening.
Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. To the line of black road. And hear the dying people. Oh, she getting straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.